There is like no limitation. What has happened is you just got a transference of the anointing that's on them. So learn to operate in it. You meet other people and all of a sudden, you're just talking to them, you think, oh, I need the peace that these people have. I need the peace that well, hang around with them. Get what they got. Get what they got. And that's part of the covenant relationships. You end up starting to share and start growing in the different anointings and the different relationships. And a lot of times, you're going to find that those relationships are there even to provide funding to help you fulfill God's call in your life. It's very hard to get finances from somebody that hates you. Ever notice that? And if you're wanting to start a new venture, you're wanting to start something new, you believe God has given you an idea that nobody has, you may need money to get that thing going, except you've cut all the supply lines off. The guy that had the money, you told him he was a jerk. The guy that could have been there to stand beside you and give you wisdom, you told him you don't know nothing. Now you're going out there and you got to go it the hard way. There's an easier way. Covenant relationships will help you find that easier way, or to even provide that easier way. So we need to be able to recognize and then honor the covenant relationships that God has given us, because they are bridges to our success and to our prosperity. Now, if we don't recognize the right relationships, we're going to end up cutting them off. We're going to end up blowing that bridge up. But there is something about this life that will require us to walk through it with somebody else. Ever heard the old adage that says behind every successful man there's a good woman? That's just part of the world, That's just part of the world recognizing. There's covenants. There's relationships. There's things that are built. Very often you'll see the men and they're up in the front and they're doing this and they're doing that and everything's, wow, those men are real movers and shakers. Now see what kind of woman they have at home. There's somebody poking in the background. Come on, it's time to get out there. You lay here till noon. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning already. Time to get up and go to work. See, a lot of guys don't appreciate this when they have. They think all of a sudden, well, this isn't what I wanted. No, but it's what you needed. I'll move on. I'm not meddling on that yet. That'll come later in this year. See, God never intended for us to be those islands unto ourselves. Those islands where, that's why relationship has become so vital and is so important to people. Now let's look at an example of the importance of maintaining covenant relationships in the book of Ruth. Ruth chapter 1. Now I mentioned earlier that it's important for us to recognize and to honor the relationships that God has given us and placed in our life. In Ruth chapter 1, we're going to start at verse 16. Now, do we know the background story here, everybody? Ruth and her husband moved to Moab. While they were out there, her sons got married to Moabitess women. I don't know why you would let your son marry a Moabitess woman. That doesn't even sound healthy, but they did. They married the Moabitess women, except while they're out there, Ruth's husband dies. Well, that's pretty bad. No, Naomi's husband dies. But even worse than that, both of her sons die, and now you have a Jewish lady in a strange land with two strange daughter-in-laws. Ruth and Orpah. Not Oprah. Then she wouldn't be so poor, would she? Ruth and Orpah. And she has these two daughter-in-laws, and she says, girls, your husbands are dead. I don't have any more boys. Even if I would happen to be able to get remarried at this age and have a child, by the time those guys were old enough to get married, you would be too old for them and you wouldn't want them. See, that was Jewish custom, that you just married the next one in line then. So if you were the husband and you died, your wife would be expected to marry your brother. I think we probably have a few wives that would say, I think not. But that was the Jewish custom. So Naomi is talking to her daughter-in-law. She says, I have nothing here. I'm going to go back to my people. I'm going to go back to Israel. I'm going to go back to Jerusalem. You stay here. I release you from all of the responsibilities that you have towards me. And they go, oh, I don't think so, Mom. We're going with you. So they all start heading off back to Israel, these three women. Except on the way, again, Naomi looks at her daughter-in-laws, Ruth and Orpah, and she says, girls, you're going to come to Israel and you're people out of covenant. You're not nice Jewish ladies that all the nice Jewish boys are going to want. You're Moabites. This is better for you to stay here, to stay among your people, and you're going to have a better chance of finding another husband and getting married and having families and doing all the right things. You'll have a better chance if you stay here. So Orpah says, yeah, okay, I'm just going back. And Ruth says, not a chance, Mom. Where you go, I go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. Whatever you face, I'm going to go. See, Ruth recognized the value of a covenant relationship. Ruth recognized that she had married this woman's son, and there was a covenant that was now established between the two of them, and she was not going to break that covenant. Orpah turned back, and that's really the last we ever hear of her. Ruth went ahead and she says, no, Mom, where you go, I'm going to go. So let's read that here in verse 16. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee or to return from following after thee, for whither thou goest, I will go. Where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, thy God my God. Where you die, I will die. There will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part me and you. So in other words, Ruth says, no, Mom, what you're going through, I'm going to go through, and if anything except death causes me to be separated from you, then the Lord, And that's about it. And Ruth says, well, okay, then let's go. So they head back to Israel, Ruth, two widow women, one older, one younger. They head back to Israel, but they're in covenant, and Ruth has recognized that this is her covenant partner through the marriage vows. So they get back to Israel, and they're not doing so good because it's pretty hard for single women in those days to make a good living. So Ruth goes out. Now Naomi's getting older. So Ruth says, Mom, you stay home. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to go out to the fields. And once the reapers have gone through, they'll let the poor people come along and glean. So I'm going to go behind and I'm going to pick up what the reapers leave. And you stay home and take care. And Ruth says, yeah, okay. Or Naomi says, okay. So Ruth goes out and she happens to come to the field of Boaz. And while she's out there collecting all this grain and being so on, all of a sudden Boaz gets interested in Ruth. See, Boaz happens to be related to Naomi. Now, you don't think Boaz had already heard a little bit about this daughter-in-law that was coming to a strange land? You don't think he already heard a little bit about what kind of woman this was that was going out there working night and day to provide for her mother-in-law? So he comes up to Ruth and he says, I've instructed my guys, I've instructed the workers to leave some extra for you. You can go over there and get it. And you don't have to go down and try and find water. We got all these pots of water. You just come and help yourself here. And she goes, why are you doing this to me? And he says, because of the honor that you're showing to your mother-in-law. Don't you think honor helps? What do you think she was doing? She was showing honor. And he recognizes this is because of that honor that you are showing to your mother, the blessing has just opened up on you. What if Ruth had said with Orpah, well, let's go, that's okay. She's an old Jewish lady. She's not even one of our own. Let's head back and see if we can find ourselves a man. But she didn't. Now, because she was willing to recognize the covenant, because she was willing to honor that covenant, she ended up getting her food provided, she ended up getting water provided, her work was made lighter, and she was able to provide for both herself